Okay, so if you have open your graphic organizer, which should look like this. So we worked together as a group and talked through artifact number one. Artifact number one was the denier. It was the coin that was created by order of Charlemagne for the Holy Roman Empire. We were able to figure out that it was created sometime between the year 812 and 814 in Mainz, Germany. And we know that it was a coin created for the purpose of currency or money within the Holy Roman Empire. And then we did a little bit of analysis from looking at the front and back of the coin, and we were able to say that we could see the Roman heritage or tradition. That was still very important to Charlemagne. We knew that because the coin was still using Latin, which was the language of the Roman Empire. The image of Charlemagne on the front of the coin looks like a typical image of what a Roman emperor would have projected himself to look like. We could see the influence of the classical Roman architecture in the temple on the back of the coin with the triangular roof, the big marble columns, and then the steps. But then we also noted that on the top of the temple and in the middle of the temple of the coin, there was the addition of crosses that that added or showed the influence of Christianity. So now we need to take a look at artifact number two. And so at this point, if somebody who was in the group that worked on artifact number two wouldn't mind unmuting and just telling me at least the title of your artifact, if not some of the description as well.
I'm trying to get up my graphic organizer.
Okay, thank you.
I can do it.
Excellent, thank you. So what was the title of artifact two?
Dialogue on dialectics.
Dialogue on dialectics. Good. Okay, so I'm going to put that over in our team chat for people that weren't in your group and need that information. Okay, and can you share a little bit of information about the artifact, who created it, when it was created, where, anything like that?
Yep.
Go for it.
It was written by Alcuin in 975 to 999 in Tegern Sea, I think. And it says that the drawings are considered the earliest portrayals of Alcuin and Charlemagne. There's no O in Alcuin.
Okay, is it just C-U-I-N?
Yeah, like that.
Okay, thank you. All right. Anything else we want to add to the description? Okay, let me go ahead and put that in the chat for you. So we know it was written by Alcuin sometime in the late 900s, between 975 and 999, at the Tegernsee Abbey, which was a monastery. A monastery was a place where monks would go to live and study. So a monk was someone who would devote his life to the church and to studying the teachings of the church. He would live in a place called a monastery that was just for monks to live and to study and to be. So Tegernsee Abbey would have been a monastery. And so this is a book that was written and copied by scribes at that particular monastery during this time period. So what elements of life or culture in Carolingian Europe does this artifact reflect?
Sorry, I wasn't listening. What did you say?
Just asking for the analysis piece. If we are, what can we say about life during this time period from looking at this particular artifact? Okay. If we look at the description here on the website, it tells us that Alcuin was a great English scholar, theologian, and head of the palace school of Charlemagne, and calls Charlemagne his disciple. So what we can see here is the importance of learning and education to Charlemagne. Charlemagne is learning from the famous scholar Alcuin. And this is a text that has been and the fact that this is a text that is being copied over and over by scribes in a monastery are showing us the connection during this time period between religion and education. During this time period, if you wanted to be educated, the only place that you could go to learn and be educated was within a monastery. Most people during this time period would have been illiterate. They wouldn't have known how to read and write. The average person did not go to school, was not educated in any way. The only place during the Middle Ages, or at least the early Middle Ages, until things start to change towards the end of this time period, the only place that you could go to learn to read and write was a monastery school run by the Catholic Church. So there's a significant link during this time period, even for Charlemagne, who's studying, in that the church and the leaders of the church were the only people who were able to or were providing any kind of education for the citizens of Western Europe. So again, this is one of those roles that in the Roman Empire would have been filled by the Roman government, and when the Roman Empire government collapsed and took all of those services with it that we talked about a couple weeks ago, the idea of schools and education is something that now the Catholic Church steps in and has to provide for the people, because there is no longer a strong central government there to provide those types of things for the people. All right, artifact number 3 Can somebody from that group unmute and at least tell me what the title of that artifact was?
The Frisian Gospel Book.
Good, thank you. Okay. And who created it? Where was it created? Anything you can tell me about the artifact itself, just describing it.
It was created around 860.
Okay, great, thank you. Oops. Okay, so we know it was created around the year 860. Do we know where it was created?
It was like Bavaria, Germany. It was somewhere in Germany.
Yep, good. Bavaria, Germany. It was written in Latin, okay, which again was the language of the Roman Empire and is still at this time the major language of the Holy Roman Empire.
Is that it? Is that an 8?
Yes, 860. So let me put this stuff over in the chat for you. And actually, before I do that, what is this? What was the purpose of this? What is a gospel book? Where do we typically hear about gospels or the gospel? Okay, anything that is referred to as a gospel or a gospel book is going to be a religious text written to share the teachings of the church. So when we talk about gospel or the gospel, gospel typically means the word of God. So this is a book that was created in order to spread religious teachings throughout the Holy Roman Empire. So the reason that, particularly in Charlemagne's time, they're producing and sending out all of these religious texts, all of these religious guidebooks for how you're supposed to live your life and the teachings of the church and the teachings of God is because when the Roman government collapsed, again with the fall of the Roman Empire, it took with it that legal system that the Roman Empire had created that protected people, told people what they could and couldn't do, in terms of what was legal, what wasn't legal, protected people's rights, etc. Under Charlemagne and the Holy Roman Empire, they didn't have necessarily a legal system, but what they had was a system of how you were supposed to live and the things that you were supposed to do in your life based on the teachings of the Bible and the Roman Catholic Church and basically the 10 Commandments. So what these types of books were meant to do was provide people kind of rules for how they were supposed to live their life and to provide a system of order and structure so that people knew what was expected of them and what was not expected of them.